We're the Meltdown here with yet another retro trailer reaction. This series looking to reintroduce and put the spotlight on some notable movies from previous years. All of the choices featured within this series have been hand-selected by our Meltdown crew. Some of these selections include some of us completing first-time watches, and some include those timeless classics that we've seen numerous times. Join us throughout all of Season 1 for a look at the retro trailers and the discussions that followed. Today's entry is 2006's Children of Men, starring Clive Owen, Julianne Moore, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Michael Caine, and it is directed by Alfonso Cuarón. Is that correct, John? Alfonso Cuarón? Cuarón? We're probably going to mess that up. The book that the film is adapted from is titled The Children of Men and is a dystopian novel by English writer P.D. James, published in 1992. The book is set in England in 2021 and centers on the results of mass infertility. James describes a United Kingdom that is steadily depopulating and focusing on a small group of resistors who do not share the disillusionment of the masses. In the novel, it is made clear that hope depends on future generations. James writes, "It was reasonable to struggle, to suffer, perhaps even to die, for a more just, a more compassionate society, but not in a world with no future, where all too soon the very words justice, compassion, society, struggle, evil would be unheard echoes on an empty air." The film adaptation that we are discussing today notably utilizes a number of memorable single-shot sequences, sometimes ranging anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes with a lot of moving parts. While some of these epic one-shots were admittedly pieced together with some behind-the-scenes magic, the impact on the viewer remains the same. Cuarón acknowledged this with Variety, stating, "Maybe I'm spilling a big secret, but sometimes it's more than what it looks like. The important thing is how you blend everything and how you keep the perception of a fluid choreography through all of these different pieces." Michael Caine gives a very memorable supporting performance in the film and is said to have based the character of Jasper off of his experiences with friend John Lennon. Cuarón stated, quote, "Once he had the clothes and so on and stepped in front of the mirror to look at himself, his body language started changing. Michael loved it. He believed he was this guy." So with that, let me introduce our guys. I am Meltdown host Tim Melton. That is my co-host, John Lunsford.
Pull my finger. No?
Our producer is Tyler Johns.
I'm Michael Caine, amigo.
Oh, no.
And finally, we introduce to you cherished Meltdown contributor Rockstar, who you see daily on the next round.
Strawberries.
This film was
Strawberries.
This film was John's selection. So why did you pick 2006's Children of Men?
Apparently a lot of Michael Caine.
I didn't realize how funny this movie was until we started talking here.
This movie is, in my opinion, the single best movie ever created. I know everybody has their own personal flavor. There's sci-fi in this. There's kind of the dystopian future, the 1984 aspect of this. There's incredible acting in this. This should have taken Clive Owen to the top of the ladder, and for some reason he has never really gotten there, although we both really admire the job he does as an actor. But the thing above all things, and you said it, is the cinematography. That a lot of times when I create a movie, it's almost all on the technical aspect of it, and then if you got a cool, some cool acting and story after that, great. But it is just incredible, and I think it launched Alfonso Cuarón. He'd already done Y Tu Mama Tambien before this, and then Emmanuel Lubezki or whatever. Roger Deakins is the GOAT. He's probably right behind him and has done movies like Birdman that you saw. This, I think, was a launching point for both of those, and they worked together multiple times, but they've also split off and done other things. That this is like the beginning for two that are considered among the best in their craft.
Without any further hesitation, let's now go ahead and see the retro trailer for Children of Men.
I can't really remember when I last had any hope. And I certainly can't remember when anyone else did either. Because really, since women stopped being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. The youngest person on Earth was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
The ultimate mystery. Why are women infertile? Some say it's genetic experiments, pollution. Why do you think we can't make babies anymore?
Doesn't matter. It's all over in 50 years. It's too late.
Move along! Move along!
Hello, Theo. How have you been? I'm sorry about the theatrics. Police have been a pain lately.
I haven't seen you for nearly 20 years.
I need your help. Not for me, a girl. Need to get her to the coast, past security checkpoints. It's hard for me to look at you. He had your eyes.
So why did you come to me?
I trust you.
Show him.
Now you know what's at stake.
We have to meet the boat.
What is this boat?
The Human Project have sent a boat.
The Human Project.
It's the greatest minds in the world working for a new society.
Your baby is the miracle the whole world has been waiting for.
We will find a way to get you to the Human Project, I promise you.
We're almost there, Clive. We're almost there.
We've seen this a couple of times so far, but really quickly here, the movie is so much better than the trailer. I mean, it's not even close. It's a tough movie to market.
Yeah, and it's, there's a style kind of the early to mid 2000s had that, like when this movie came out, that just doesn't ever work for me. There's so many great movies.
Skeleton Key vibes a little bit.
There's so many great movies in that time that I've watched almost all the trailers and say, not it.
As we saw in parts of the trailer, when infertility threatens mankind with extinction and the last child born has perished, a disillusioned bureaucrat becomes the unlikely champion in the fight for the survival of Earth's population. He must face down his own demons and protect the planet's last remaining hope from danger. So, Rockstar, this was your, I believe, first time watching this movie.
It was.
What is your take on Children of Men?
It's one of those movies I was too late on that I have been hearing from Lance and Lunsford how amazing this is. This is one of the best movies of all time. And it was good. I just think I have more complaints about it. There's more holes in it than I want to go in just random order.
Please do.
I don't like blood on the camera lens. I'm not a fan of that. I do love the single shots. I think that was really cool and everything. It's not nearly as funny as Lunsford said it was going to be. I think Michael Caine was underutilized. He puts a stick in front of a bush to keep away from his house. It's 2027.
Yes.
Well, was that a fact or a complaint that he puts?
It's just weird that he keeps a stick. Like so,
it was a few massive tree branches.
But just imagine you have to remove them to go in, then stop, go back and put the stick branch back. Oh, that sucks. But
that's the world.
But it's 2027. Is that when it takes place?
Yes.
And the first thing you hear is Deep Purple Hush. I kind of like that, and I don't. Like we're listening to classic rock, like it's the future. But I thought there's a lot of classic rock in this. And in the safe house, this is the girl that we're trying to protect. We're doing spoilers, right?
Correct.
Okay. You got the only pregnant girl in the world that we know of, and in a safe house, and her protection is this crazy nurse lady that's just sleeping in the bed with her, that Clive Owen, hey, we got to go now. Okay. And it's just like, like this is supposed to be like sacred. There's like supposed to be Fort Knox around her. So it's just stuff like that. But I did like the movie. I just think that I've heard so much that this is one of the greatest movies of all times that my expectations were not met. I respect it though.
Oh my gosh.
No, it is. It's a good movie, but I really, it's one of those things. Like if I saw The Godfather right now, I would not. I was like, this is what everybody thinks is the greatest movie of all time. It's just one of those where I was just too late. I think I was too late.
So I know we normally save our star ratings for later on, but I do have to ask, out of 5, where are you with it?
Oh, I'm not going to give it a bad. I think it was a good. I love the concept. I think it's really cool. I would give it a 3.5.
Okay.
It's not a bad movie, but I just don't think it's one of the greatest. Like I'm in my head. I'm like everybody's saying that this is going to be so good, and you're like, phew, it's not amazing, but it's good.
Absolutely nothing wrong.
I do love Clive Owen in it though. He was great.
Yeah, feeling that way for sure. I just didn't know based on where you were, like what that number would be. But 3.5 definitely does line up with your sentiments. Tyler, what are some of the elements you liked and disliked about Children of Men? You were also a first-time watcher of this movie.
Yes, I really enjoyed the cinematography, particularly the handheld cinematography. I thought some of those takes were brilliant. I loved pretty much everybody's acting performance in this. One other thing I noticed is when Clive Owen's character goes to talk to his cousin, I believe, towards the beginning of the film, you can see a pink pig balloon in the sky behind him. I have no idea if the director has publicly said it, but there's no way that you can convince me that that's not a reference to the Animals album by Pink Floyd.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so
Good
that was
eye
something
there.
I
Yes.
noticed, and I was just like, oh, the Leo meme. Really enjoyed seeing that.
You're on fire today, Tyler. You need to.
You must have gotten a bag.
Yeah, you must have
I
gotten
did.
some
I
fluid
did.
running
I
through.
did get a bag.
And a haircut.
True. I really enjoyed that little reference. Thought Clive Owen was fantastic. Michael Caine, like Rocky said, was underutilized, I thought. And another thing, I thought Miriam, the nurse character, should have had more to do. I felt like for the most part, she was just there to kind of babble at the worst possible times and just annoy
talking about
the other.
babbling, Mariachi or whatever her name is. What the hell's going on with her? Non-stop. It's just in subtitles, speaking foreign language. What?
Where are you at with the star rating for this?
Man, overall, I would say between 4 and 4.5.
Okay, so
This was a really solid pick by Lunsford. I had gotten to the point where I dread seeing a Lunsford pick come out of the bucket, but you've completely redeemed yourself with this one.
It's okay. I still dread the horror movies that you still have in the bucket somewhere.
immediately when this was picked, I told Tyler, I said, you're going to like this movie. I said,
You did.
I said, you're going to like this, and I'm glad that ended up working out. But I have some things to gush over with this movie. Let's start with this. First off, I've heard the complaints here that Michael Caine wasn't utilized enough. I think he's utilized a perfect amount in this movie. Like, his scenes are that much more impactful because he's not overused in it. But that's just my opinion.
I personally would have liked another strawberry cough scene.
Sure.
That joke did not get old.
Pull my finger.
If one of your major complaints about this movie is there was something I really liked in it, that's a pretty good complaint to have. The one-shot car attack sequence where Julianne Moore is killed is one of the single most effective things I've ever seen in cinema. The escape down the hill in neutral scene is also really fantastic, but it's almost a little bit undone by how perfect the Julianne Moore sequence is, in my opinion. The exposition in this movie isn't heavy-handed. I love that it allows you to soak in the situation from a lot of its shots rather than just its script. It isn't doing a lot of like, hey, we need to have this important conversation about how the world got to this point. You're able to absorb it through shots and through printed material, and I really think that that's a great choice here because you could bog people down with the story of how everybody got to where they got to. I'm a huge fan of Clive Owen, and I would have loved for him to have a run at playing James Bond. He has to constantly in this movie be reactive to horrible circumstances and loss, and yet you feel his pain without it feeling too performative. He's not on there giving heavy-handed monologues. He's having to react and tell you exactly how he feels, and you've got to believe it for the story to work, and I feel like he is way underrated as an actor and is incredible in this movie. The supporting cast is stellar. Each of their exits, as they all sort of leave the story one at a time, every one of those exits feels very weighty and important. And even though it may just be a side character like, I don't know, bad guy henchman with hair that ends up getting killed, every one of those things, you don't know when these characters are going to exit the script. And every one of them, it's like, okay, I think that we don't have to watch him anymore. It was a very distinct look in this movie, especially with the use of sunlight in the cinematography choices, I think is just excellent. The set design in multiple locations. In this movie, you are constantly on the move, yet it's not anxiety-ridden like something like, I don't know, Uncut Gems. This is a movie.
Civil War.
This is a better version of Civil War than Civil War was, but we won't get into that. It's unsettling to feel like you can never stand still long enough to feel comfortable in the surroundings, but it works so well in this movie. Everything feels real and authentic, with each extra in the movie being important. I think one thing the movie Titanic got so right was you could piece together stories based on single shots of extras within that movie. And they may have been on screen for 10 seconds, but they left an impression on you to where when you watch it again, you're filing in your own story of what their background is. And I do that with Children of Men, where they have to have bodies on screen, and they do such a good job, I think, of casting all the extras and putting them in situations that feel real and like violence could break out at any single moment. The hallway shooting scene ending with the boulder to the face, where they're running away from the dude with the gun. Clive Owen's got the rock, yes, and he hits him across the face, and the blood.
Hurts.
It's just, it's not over the top, and it's very. It's just, it
the
works
pressure,
so perfect.
Have the pressure of him trying to squeeze through the door.
Yeah, and I just think that that's a really realistic look at how that would play out. The movies look at the future. The movie is set in 2027 London. The book is set, I believe, in 2021, like I mentioned earlier. I think it's aged extremely well. We're just 3 years away from the target of 2027, and it feels like a modern movie here in 2024. There are some things I was not wild about. I don't feel like the movie is as easily digestible as it needs to be. The exchange of dialogue, in my opinion, is its weakest element. At times, the line delivery is tough to understand. You need to watch this with subtitles sometimes to really soak it all in. And I think that audiences at times can feel frustrated about missing vital information. In the barn with the cows, Clive Owen says he's not quite sure what's going on, and I feel the general audience is right there with him at times in this movie. The impact of its ending for me, I mentioned Titanic. It's got kind of the same ending as Titanic. It's very, very similar. And having seen Titanic first, the ending didn't resonate with me as something that was earth-shattering. But the worst crime, I think, of this movie is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack in this movie is horrendous. I hate the end credits music. I wish it would have just stayed silent until the sound of children playing occurred. I just think tonally the soundtrack is all over the place. So, John, with this film being your selection, you get the final word on Children of Men.
So, y'all have already said a lot of the things that I very much enjoy about this. The roadside ambush car chase scene when Julianne Moore gets killed is maybe one of the greatest scenes in all of cinema. And I think not only from a lot of people have to be involved in it because all the people that storm the car and, of course, the four that are in the car, but from the technology that was developed from it, creating a custom rig in the middle of the car, creating folding seats so as the camera moves around, people can pop out of the way and pop back up. The windshield folds down. There's a whole set on top of the car where four people are sitting, including the cinematographer, so they can kind of do it all. And, of course, you never get these things in one take, so you always have to do them multiple times. And so the same with that, the same with the birth scene, which had to be done perfectly when there's like 4 minutes of one take. And then the scene at the end where he basically gets captured by the fishes. Then a firefight breaks out. He's able to escape and go try to find Key, and he goes into the building and then comes out. And there's a couple of cuts. If you really pay attention, you can kind of sort of see, especially because I've seen it 5,000 times, that you can kind of tell. And I think seeing Birdman, which is the same cinematographer
and director,
it's a different director. It's
Birdman's not done.
Inarutu. I forgot his first name.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
That's also did The Revenant, I believe, because Emmanuel Lubezki, whatever, did The Revenant also.
Yeah.
But you can tell. So Birdman's supposed to be the entire movie is one shot, and it clearly isn't because of too much time passes. But like the way it's shot, and you can kind of tell certain things, like this is probably where they made that move because they went through a dark hallway or something. The same thing happens here if you really look at it closely. But the first time, you're just like, I feel like they haven't stopped this entire time. The blood on the lens, I like, because it shows that it kind of is one full scene. And in the blood splattering of shooting a scene, it just happened, kind of randomly happened. And so then the cinematographer's like, I think it's cool, you should keep it in. Alfonso Cuarón wanted to get rid of it originally. I am normally, as master of spoilers on this show, a person who wants to know every single aspect of everything. But I like kind of the open-endedness of how exactly did infertility happen? How exactly did we get to this state where all the rest of the countries pretty much went to hell, and Great Britain's the one that's still standing. It's funny how I feel like kind of like V for Vendetta, same thing. There's like these stories that Britain's always the one that ends up surviving instead of America or something. And I know not everybody's American that creates movies, but it's just kind of funny.
Speaking of Civil War.
Yeah, speaking of Civil War. But, you know, I kind of like the way it's shot. You mentioned the sunshine, and I feel like this whole thing is kind of like a metaphor for hope, whether it's religious reasons, whether it's just in general, I don't want to see the world burn reasons. And every time there is sun, the one that really stood out for me is when they go to the old school while they're waiting on Sid, and he wakes up, the sun kind of wakes him up, and there's sun shining over every aspect of that, with him walking into the school, Key on the swings, Marion kind of explained the story of like when she realized, oh, no more babies are being born, and then Sid showing up to take them into Bexhill. If I had two gripes,
soundtrack.
One is the final song. I don't have a problem with the soundtrack in the movie. I do have a problem with the credit song, though.
More than a feeling.
I also like the way music is used with Michael Caine, and like the crazy loud music and it working as the alarm and everything. I like that. And the other that honestly I never noticed until watching it last night for this, as many times as I've seen this movie, I've never watched the movie with my dog before. And I watched the movie, my dog was sitting there. And whenever a dog pops on the screen, my dog
There's dogs everywhere.
loses it and barks. There are dogs everywhere. And I've never really put two and two together because I've been so engrossed in the actual story of clearly dogs can still get it on because it's been over 18 years. There's no way all these dogs are over 18 years old. So it's just, I mean, and once again, they don't say any reason why this happens necessarily. You're kind of meant to say, because Clive Owen even at one point says, you know, is it either, you know, an ecological thing that it's happened, or is it, you know, God saying, you know, you're done? There's a lot of different reasons you could say it. And with that too, also the religious aspect of it, like, if you've ever seen The Leftovers, they're kind of one of the main factions of The Leftovers when a rapture style event happens is the guilty remnant. And that's a big part of it. They're all dressed in white and everything. And there's a scene that they kind of show how the city looks, it kind of setting the scene. And there's a bunch of people out in yellow, basically with the same verbiage, you know, the whole repent kind of verbiage. And they're all sitting there. They're being super quiet. There's a lot of Leftovers vibes when it comes to how the world moves on after something has happened. And obviously the something happening is nobody being born anymore. There's just a lot of the imagery I like. I like the advertising in this because it's not like, you know, you expect futuristic advertising to be like all over the place. And you watch a movie like Blade Runner and there's ads everywhere in Blade Runner. With this, the advertising doesn't hit you over the head. But one of the first big ads you see is when Clive Owen wakes up in his apartment and you see Quietus, I believe it is, which is basically a euthanasia kit. And you then see Michael Caine using it. It's like, oh, I'm using it to kill rats. And then, of course, he has to use it to kill his wife and dog before he knows basically they're going to die. So he kind of sends them out a peaceful way before he goes out and gets shot. But there's way ads end up working into the story that's really, really good. The whole thing, I mentioned kind of the 1984 aspect of it. I've always been fascinated with 1984. That's something I imagine we will continue to get stories kind of based off of, maybe not 1984 itself in movie form, but for all time, that'll be something that'll be used and keep moving the date forward because we're well past 1984 and we'll keep moving past even 2027 with this. But it's what makes me like a game like Half-Life 2. If you've ever played Half-Life 2, the world, minus the alien aspect of it, is just like this is, the dystopian world. So just stuff like this I enjoy in general because that's multiple things I named that all kind of have the same vibe to it, even though how you got there ultimately is different. But if you take the world I like, you take acting, which is very good. Everybody loves Michael Caine. Clive Owen, I don't think anybody really dislikes Clive Owen. He just hasn't exploded like a Michael Caine may have. Chiwetel Ejiofor, at the time, probably not super big, but has become a very big actress. Julia Moore obviously has been a really big actress, even though she's really not in the movie that much.
Charlie Hunnam.
Charlie
this is
Hunnam
before Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, and before Pacific Rim, which is where I discovered him. That's, you know, there's a lot of people in this. It's like, oh yeah, that person looks familiar. Oh, that person looks familiar. Everything all combined into plus just a good story and technically incredible. It makes it a perfect 5 out of 5 movie for me. I know I said the credits at the end doesn't make it absolutely perfect, so it's 4.9 repeating, but the actual movie itself, then the credits start, I can turn it off when the final Children of Men happens and the kids are screaming before the music starts. But yeah, it's to me the best movie ever made, and I know I'm probably the only person that has that opinion, but I absolutely love it.
Children of Men debuted in limited release in 16 theaters here in the United States on December 22nd, 2006.
A Christmas movie.
It expanded. Well, it kind of is
If you
biblical in tone.
Everything Theo and Key or Joseph and Mary. She says she jokes that she's a virgin even though she's not.
She's in a barn at one
She's
point.
in a barn, which is the manger. I mean, there's a million things.
The pregnancy reveal is kind of odd to me. You just lift up your shirt. You don't have to take everything off. But I know it's artsy.
That was a good point.
Yeah.
But back to the soundtrack. With as much as
John's just going through like this cinematic adventure.
I
And
know.
you're like, why do you take your clothes off like a weirdo? Yeah. It's like, okay, that's where we're back to now.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Tyler. You were saying something?
Oh, yeah. Back to the soundtrack. With as much as they said Fugees, they didn't play a single song by the Fugees. I think that's a missed opportunity.
There you go.
Sure.
Well, you guys were complaining about the soundtrack. Replace it with Ready or Not.
The movie expanded to over 1,200 theaters on January 5th of 2007. So technically, it's kind of a 2007 movie, even though it came out at the tail end of 2006 in just a handful of theaters. The film grossed over $70 million theatrically with a reported $76 million budget. So it was not deemed a commercial success, but the people who love it, the people who champion it, absolutely to this day have never really swayed from their opinions of this being such a strong outing. So that's what you need to know about Children of Men. Is this a movie you appreciate all these years later? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure you take a look at our title sponsor, John. That's MyBookie.
Go to mybookie.ag. Use promo code next round. Always right there in the corner. You can play in the sportsbook, play in the casino, play in the live casino as well. Mybookie.ag. Promo code next round, but anything, anytime, anywhere.
Make sure you're subscribed to The Meltdown so you never miss another retro trailer reaction.